One of them has in one of the large cities an undertaker's business. The second, in another large city, has a bureau for what are called matchmaking and divorce. And the third is the proprietor of many offices founded by himself in various cities for what is called money exchange. However, my boy, owing to this etherogram, I have wandered a long way from my original tale. Let us go back to our former theme. Well then, upon this fourth flight of mine to the planet Earth, our ship Occasion descended onto the sea called the Red Sea. And we descended upon this sea because it washed the eastern shores of that continent where I wished to go, namely to that continent then called Grabonsi, and now called Africa, on which those 8 beings I needed then bred more than on any other of the terra firma parts of the surface of that planet of yours, and also because this sea was at that period particularly convenient for the mooring of our ship Occasion. But what was still more important was that on one of its sides that country was situated, which was then called Nilia, and is now called Egypt, where those beings of our tribe then existed who wished to remain on that planet, and with whose help I intended to collect the apes. Well then, having descended upon the Red Sea, we sailed from the ship Occasion on Epodrenech to the shore, and afterwards on camels we came to that town where our beings existed, and which was then the capital of the future Egypt. This capital city was then called Thebes. On the very first day of my arrival in the city of Thebes, one of the beings of our tribe existing there told me, among other things, in the course of our conversation, that the beings of the earth of that locality had devised a new system for observing other cosmic concentrations from their planet, and that they were then constructing what was required in order to carry it into effect. And also, as everybody there said, that the convenience and possibilities of this new system were excellent, and until then unparalleled on the earth. And when he had related all he had himself seen with his own eyes, I immediately became greatly interested, because from his description of certain details of this new construction there, it seemed to me that these terrestrial beings had perhaps found a means of overcoming that inconvenience about which I myself had just previously been thinking a great deal, while I was completing the construction of my observatory on the planet Mars. And so I decided to postpone for a while my first intention of immediately going further south on that continent to collect the apes I needed, and instead to go first where the said construction was being made, in order on the spot to become personally acquainted with it from every aspect, and to find out all about it. Well then, the day following our arrival in the city Thebes, accompanied by one of the beings of our tribe who already had many friends there, and also by the chief constructor of the said construction, and of course by our Ahun also, I went this time on what is called a chor-tetev, down the tributary of that great river now called the Nile. Near where this river flowed into a large Salia-Koryapnian area. Those constructions were just being completed, one part of which then interested me. The district itself where the work was being carried on, both for this new what they called observatory, and for several other constructions for the welfare of their being existence, was then called Abazlin. A few years later it came to be called their Kaironana, and at the present time it's simply called the outskirts of Cairo. The mentioned constructions had been begun long before by one of what are called their pharaohs, the name by which the beings of that region called their kings. And at the time of my fourth flight to the earth, and my first visit to this place, the special constructions he had begun were already being completed by his grandson, also a pharaoh. Although the observatory which interested me was not yet quite finished, nevertheless, observations of the exterior visibility of cosmic concentrations could be made from it, and the results issuing from them and the reciprocal action of these results could be studied. Those beings who were occupied with such observations and studies were called, at that period on the earth, astrologers. But when afterwards that psychic disease of theirs called wiseacring became finally fixed there, owing to which these specialists of theirs also shriveled and shrank, and became specialists only in giving names to remote cosmic concentrations, they came to be called astronomers. Inasmuch as the difference in significance and sense in relation to surrounding beings between those from among the three-brained beings who have taken your fancy, who at that time were such professionals, and those who have now, as it were, the same occupation, might show you, so to say, the obviousness of the steady deterioration of the degree of crystallization of data engendering the sane logical mentation, which ought to be present in the common presences of your favorites as three-brained beings. I therefore find it necessary to explain to you and to help you to have an approximate understanding of this difference, which is also changing for the worse. At that period, these terrestrial three-brained beings already of responsible age, whom the others named astrologers, besides making the said observations and investigations of various other cosmic concentrations for the purpose of a greater, as it is said, detailizing of that branch of general learning of which they were representatives, fulfilled several further definite essence obligations taken upon themselves towards surrounding beings similar to themselves. Among their fundamental definite obligations was that they also, like our Zerlichners, had to advise all the conjugal pairs in their what was then called flock, according to the types of those pairs, about the time and form of the process of the sacred El Muarno, for the purpose of a desirable and corresponding conception of their results. And when such results were actualized, or as they themselves say, newly born, they had to draw up their oblaciunarish, which is the same as what your favorites call horoscope. And later, either they themselves or their substitutes had, during the whole period of the formation of the newly born for responsible existence, and of their subsequent responsible existence, to guide them and give corresponding indications on the basis of the said oblaciunarish, and also on the basis of the cosmic laws constantly explained by them flowing from the actions of the results of other large cosmic concentrations in general on the process of being existence of beings on all planets. These indications of theirs, and also their, so to say, warning counsels, consisted in the following. When a function became disharmonized, or only began to be disharmonized in the presence of any being of their flock, then this being applied to the astrologer of his